Okay, everybody, welcome to the webinar. It still looks like people are joining us. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm really looking forward to taking you through. This has been a great piece of work to put together for myself. It's really made me feel motivated to inspire and aspire. So let's get started. Please make sure that you've got a glass of water with you, a pen and a paper. Okay, we've still got a couple more joining. This is great. Okay, so hello again, everybody. My name's Kylie, and I'm a health coach for Thriving Minds. So I'd like, again, if you're just joining us, to welcome everyone to the Thriving Minds webinar, presented through Quest of 1,000 Voices. So for some of you I know, others we've met through social media, and for some of us this is our first time connecting. So it's really exciting to be here presenting to you today. I want to really thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. This is a really big commitment to saying yes to you, to your business, to your success, and most importantly to your clients' results. So today we're going to be focusing on motivation. We're going to look at some motivational patterns and understand how we can decide to stay motivated and to keep our mojo. Before I continue, I just want to give you a little bit of background on who we are at Thriving Minds. The Thriving Minds team is led by myself and my business partner, Nicola. And we have a mission to create healthy bodies and minds throughout Australia and overseas. So we believe that before you can create a healthy body, you need to create a healthy mind. So between us, we combine an expertise in coaching psychology, yoga teaching, HR management, and training facilitation. So we combine about 30 years of experience in these fields and are really looking forward to sharing this with you and our stories and discoveries along the way. So for myself, I've been a yoga teacher for the past 6 years, and before starting Thriving Minds in 2008, my career was in human resources. I have an undergraduate degree in psychology and a master's degree in coaching psychology, and I'm really passionate about everyone living to their potential and basically just being happy. So my focus is on the concepts of sports psychology and positive psychology, which is pretty evident when you see the types of material like we're going through today that we produce through Thriving Minds. Our focus audience is generally working with personal trainers and other health and fitness professionals to bring more psychology into the way that they work with their clients. Personal trainers are very savvy and well trained when it comes to the body, but they also need to focus on their client's mindset. You cannot have sustainable change without working on both. So for elite athletes, it's all good because they're lucky enough to have sports psychologists as well as a coach and sometimes a whole team of people working on different coaching elements. However, for most of us, we aren't that lucky or that rich to have a team of trainers. So it's all rolled into one personal trainer if we're lucky. So you'll hear me making a lot of reference to your clients. And I do understand that some of you are on this webinar for your own benefit rather than serving clients. So I just want to make it clear that everyone can use these principles, but we put the material together with a focus on health and fitness practitioners to help them with their clients. So in saying this though, we also urge the health and fitness practitioners to focus on their understanding within their own behaviours before they can work on their clients. So in this session, I'm also going to share with you a simple diagram or model that I've put together based on the theory of motivational patterns. So this diagram is something that I'm going to email to you after the session, and you can have as a reference when you're working with your clients or working on understanding your own motivation. So let's get started. Just taking a moment to go through the webinar navigation. For some of you, this may be the first time that you've jumped onto a webinar. I've felt myself talking about this week, and a lot of people don't actually know what a webinar is. So I just want to draw your attention to a couple of icons that you can see. Firstly, you should be able to see that there's a toolbar for want of a better word, on the right-hand side. I'm not exactly sure what they call it. So I draw your attention to several icons. So have a look and see if you can find a little hand up there. That's to ask a question. And you should also see a chat box. So if you've got any questions, please ask any questions. Just type it in the chat box and I'll get around to it. So what makes a fun and exciting webinar is hearing from you and getting the interaction. So say hi and comment throughout so I know that you're there, and any questions you have we can answer at the time or at the end of the session today. Okay, so motivation. So motivation, we all have it at times, we all love it, and we all want more of it. So how many times have you set a goal and been really motivated to achieve it? At the start, your motivation is flowing and it's effortless momentum to reach your goal. After a little while, the momentum drops and the motivation starts to waver. You give yourself a little pep talk to pick yourself up again and re-motivate yourself towards that goal. Then a couple of weeks later, again, your motivation wavers, but you're still moving towards your goal. Then a couple of weeks after that, you stop trying to achieve your goal. And a couple of weeks again, and you're completely unmotivated and you wonder why when it was originally something that you wanted so badly. For those of you who have clients, how often do you see that in your clients? I can guess a lot. No matter how diligent we are at the goal setting stage, motivation always wavers as we work towards reaching our goals. So you wonder how, in a matter of weeks, you could lose your mojo so much. How could something you wanted so badly be so meaningless now because you lost your motivation to achieve it? All too often we just let go of things and just move on to something else. We justify it as it mustn't have really been what I was meant to be doing right now, or it's too hard, when really it's because we just didn't have the motivation to keep going. What would happen if you could understand how to get an endless supply of motivation? Imagine how your life would look, or your clients' lives would look, if you had the mojo to inspire and aspire every day. So during this session, I'm going to be looking at the following questions. Motivation, what does it mean? Why do we want it? What stops us? And then, how do we get more of it? So let's look at that first question. What does it mean? Motivation. What motivates us? When you think about it, it's actually quite a big thing to articulate and get really clear on. Does anyone want to have a go in the chat box at articulating what motivation means to them? So if you have a response, just write it in the chat box. Okay, fantastic. We've got an action to move towards something, energy, passion, having a goal and focus that we're working towards, the drive and desire to do something. Yep, actions towards something. Energy around a goal. Okay, fantastic. So as you see from those responses, it's all about drive, it's about desire, it's about having a goal, it's about having focus, it's about action and direction and moving towards something. So from a definition, and excuse me because this does sound a little bit jargonistic, but motivation is a psychological feature that arouses an organism to act towards a desired goal and elicits, controls and sustains certain goal-directed behaviours. It can be considered a driving force, a psychological one that compels or reinforces an action towards a desired goal. For example, hunger is a motivation that elicits a desire to eat. So motivation has been shown to have roots in physiological, behavioural, cognitive and social areas. It can be rooted in the basic impulse to optimise well-being, minimise physical pain and maximise pleasure. I'm just going to repeat that. It minimises physical pain and maximises pleasure. So it can also originate from specific physical needs. You know, if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of eating, sleeping or resting, and sex. So motivation is an inner drive to behave or act in a certain manner. It's the difference between waking up before dawn to pound the pavement and lazing around the house all day. So these inner conditions, such as wishes, desires, goals, they activate us to move in a particular direction in behaviour. So in summary, motivation can be defined as the purpose for or psychological cause of an action. Without all the jargon, motivation is our mojo. What makes us tick. It's what keeps us functioning. It keeps us in action. So just take a moment to think about what motivation means to you. What makes you tick? Take a few minutes to write down something that makes you feel really motivated. It doesn't have to be about your job, it can be about anything. While you're doing that, I'll just share my scope on it. For me, I'm motivated by health. So I have a strong belief in being healthy. And when I think about health and all the complexities that we have in our society about health, I get a physiological response. I get all energized and wound up. My eyes widen, my heart beats a little faster. My thoughts go a million miles an hour because I'm really passionate about it. It drives me to behave in a certain way. It drives me to eat a healthier option for dinner. It drives me to go for a run. It drives me to go to a yoga class. And to some extent, it also impacts my social interactions as I tend to spend a lot more time with friends who are also healthy and active than those that are not. Does anyone want to share what makes them motivated? Getting the kids to school on time so they're out of the house for the day. Okay, great. Staying fit and healthy. Working hard and getting recognised. Okay, good, thank you. So if you think about it, everyone's got things that they want to be motivated about. Feeling good from living a healthy life. Spending time with friends and family. Save and work hard so I can enjoy my holidays and visit new places. Great, thanks guys. So why do we want it? So we want it. I love this, Austin Powers, can't beat it. When you think of the word mojo, I think that's what everyone thinks about. Austin Powers, mojo. So motivation is the mojo for performance. So once you master your motivation, you can have the mojo to achieve your dreams and create really great results. So arousal is actually the physiological response for mojo. I remember taking a proposal to my managing director when I was working in HR, and I used the word arousal in a proposal on peak performance. My boss, who was new at the time, was amused to no end, but arousal is real. We want to be turned on by life. We want to be aroused. We need to be aroused in life to feel that oomph, to feel that motivation, to feel that mojo. So motivation is what drives us to perform well. When we measure motivation, we want to pay attention to the direction and intensity of purpose. By looking at the reasons of why you do what you do, here you'll find the reasons in what motivates you. So let's look at the direction and intensity of purpose. The direction of purpose is being motivated by success or failure. Are you working towards something to be successful, or are you working towards it so as not to be a failure? Are you working towards something to be successful or to not be a failure? So sometimes that takes a little bit to think about that. But let's take a personal trainer working with a client. We'll call that client Penny, just for the purposes of the session. So Penny wants to lose weight, as most of the clients seeing a personal trainer want to lose weight. But what's not clear is whether Penny is losing weight so she does not have a heart attack, which is a failure, or so that she can run a marathon, which is success. Either way, it's the same result and the same goal. What is different is the direction, and this matters in the way we keep clients motivated. So you can see how the direction here is the success, the marathon, or failure, heart attack. The intensity of purpose ranges from high to low. So you'll actually be more motivated if you are either very low or extremely high. So for example, if you're motivated by the thought of being successful in losing weight, then you'll be directed towards that by feeling motivated to take the necessary action of eating well, exercising, and doing all the right things. Likewise, if you're motivated by failure of not losing weight, you'll also be motivated to take the necessary action of eating well, exercising, and doing all the right things. If the intensity is very low, you will be motivated. So this can be seen as the low-hanging fruit. Or likewise, the intensity can be very high and you'll be motivated. So if there's, what this is saying is if there's no intensity, so if you're in the middle range, you're not necessarily going to be motivated to pursue something. So you're either wanting it to be very low intensity or very high. So let's look at Penny. For Penny to go on 2 runs a week, for example, for 20 minutes, the intensity will be low, and she'll see this as being very achievable, the low-hanging fruit, so she'll be motivated to do it. Extremely high motivation for Penny might be doing a ridiculous amount of 1 minute sprints on a Saturday afternoon. The intensity for this will be high because she'll have the motivation to do it. It will really challenge her and it will get her to her marathon, and she knows it'll be fun. So to recap on this, we look at direction and intensity of purpose. We want to have mojo so we can keep the direction and intensity at great levels, so we don't tire or bore of our activities. Okay. So let's now have a look at what stops us. Why is it that we don't always have motivation? Most of the time it stems from a sense of fear, be it fear of failure or just as likely fear of success. But there are also other things like perfectionistic tendencies where we beat ourselves up because nothing is ever good enough. So in essence, what stops us? We actually stop ourselves. Our limiting beliefs within ourselves stop us. Most of them are not real, but they're created through our mindset and they're so engraved in our behaviour patterns from our experiences of the world since birth. Do you know what stops you? So I want to make it clear that it would be tiring to have mojo 24/7. We definitely need downtime and we definitely need rest to balance it out. My teachings here are not about keeping switched on all the time, but it's about having more of it and deciding when you need it and to reach your goals. So let's have a look at the 6 types of motivational patterns. I've just got a question on the inbox of saying, how can we motivate ourselves? And that will become clearer as we go through these motivational patterns, and then we'll have a look at decision making after that. So there are 6 types of motivational patterns, and I'm going to talk through these one by one. So when I do, see if you can pick which motivation pattern you generally go by. You may find that in different areas of your life, you adopt different patterns. You may feel some are stronger than others. Also, have a think about the patterns of close friends or family and see if you can pick where they are. If you're a health and fitness professional or you work with clients, see if any clients come to mind as we go through them. So let's have a look at the first one, learned helplessness. I think the picture says it all. You see a young boy with a long face, empty eyes, and a post-it saying, "Help me." Learned helplessness is when a person has learned to behave helplessly. These types generally fail to respond, even though there are opportunities for them to help themselves by avoiding unpleasant circumstances or by gaining positive rewards. Learned helplessness is the view that there's a perceived absence of control over the outcome of the situation. Unfortunately, in chronic cases of this, it can easily lead to depression and other related mental illnesses. People can become quite narrow-minded when they're sitting in learned helplessness and they can't really see all the opportunities that are available to them. So people displaying this generally have been ineffective and less sensitive in being able to determine the consequences of the behaviour. It's the poor me syndrome. This pattern of motivation is exhibited by a lack of effort and is characterised by low intensity behaviour. People here attribute success and failure to external factors such as luck. They don't believe that anything is within their control. They think all outcomes are beyond their control. So good news is that this mindset is learned. So it can be retrained to adopt a learned effective motivation pattern. So these people must be taught to redefine success, measure improvement against themselves rather than against another. So if you have clients or you feel that yourself may suffer a bit from learned helplessness, work towards redefining success. So success should be defined as something that we are able to control. This may sound really simple to some of you, but if you have this pattern ingrained in your life, it's really difficult to see there is anything but chance in the outcomes. Chart performance and improvement. So doing this will provide evidence that they are in control of their outcomes and that they can decide to be successful and it's within their control. Develop short-term goals. So short-term goals are more measurable and again provide the evidence that they have control over the outcomes. Get them to realise that they've earned success. Put a reward system in place with your clients so that they're taught that there is a benefit to success. The next one we have is fear of failure. So this is a tendency to pursue success or to avoid failure. When it is to pursue success, it's coming from a positive place. But when it's to avoid failure, it's negative. The preoccupation with avoiding failure is really emotionally draining. It's a strong motivator, but it can really cause problems in performance. So there is actually, I found as I was researching this, a chronic condition called actisophobia, which is an excessive fear of failure. So it's an abnormal, unwarranted and persistent fear of failure. So these people that have it quite chronically, it's so intense that they choose to not take any risk. Oftentimes this person will subconsciously determine their own efforts so that they'll no longer have to continue to try. To these people, their effort is proportionate to the achievement of personal goals and fulfillment. The unwillingness to try that arrives from perceived inequality between the possibilities of success and failure holds them back from a life of meaning and the realisation of potential. So that can be quite extreme, but it's very real. Fear of failure, it can result from things like conditional love, inappropriate use of rewards, self-worth attached to winning and losing, or someone who's never failed, so they've never experienced fail, so they fear it. The symptoms, so what you can look for in your clients is they might be making up excuses for performance. They might be worrying about what others will think of performance. They have quite a preoccupations with others' reputations, and indecisive about strategy, and perceives that, again, that they have no control. So how do you work with these guys that show fear of failure? Separate identity from performance. So these people need to be aware that they'll be the same person regardless of performance on a task, sport, or goal. Encourage them to learn from loss. So there are some positive elements of losing. So it might be that they understand something more about themselves and their mindset and how they cope when they're at a loss, or it might have something to do with their technique that they can improve on. There's always something to learn. Success equals effort times ability times preparation times will. So like our last buddy in learned helplessness, often these people also do not think they can have control over outcomes. You need to work with them to show them that there is an on-purpose way to increase likelihood of success, and that's through effort, ability, preparation, and will. And employ goal-setting techniques. So I would actually argue that all of these patterns need goals, but there's different ways of going about them. And for these guys, it's about getting goals so that they can see evidence and take baby steps so that they don't fear failure. When setting goals, it's important to focus on the language and ensure it's positive wording, and that they're moving towards a goal rather than against a goal. For example, Penny losing weight for the marathon rather than to avoid a heart attack. Next one we have fear of success. So this pattern of motivation is a preoccupation with the perceived negative aspects of winning. So here people can become overwhelmed by the baggage that success brings with it, such as having to deal with unrealistic expectations, responsibility of being a role model, and having others be jealous or envious. So we do have quite a success-orientated culture. We don't give it much thought to the fact that success can be downright scary. So we're used to seeing fear as the enemy, so we do our best to ignore it and soldier on, which means the fear remains subconscious, expressing itself in behaviours. So what can you do about it? Sometimes all you need to do is out the fear by admitting to yourself that you are in fact afraid. Paradoxically, it can have the effect of helping you relax. Okay, I'm nervous, which is pretty normal considering what's at stake. And sometimes it helps to focus on exactly what you're afraid of and find ways to deal with the threat. So there's 3 classic versions of fear of success and what to do about them. The first one is fear of not coping with success. Success is more complex than failure. On some level, it's more comfortable to stay in a familiar situation, even if it doesn't feel great on the surface. But achieving success means you're entering uncharted territory. You're putting yourself out there to be scrutinised and criticised and exposing yourself to new pressures and demands. What to do about it? Although the idea of success can be scary, the reality is generally easier to cope with than you had before. If you've been resourceful enough to keep yourself going during the rough times, you'll probably do the same with the good times. You'll have to make changes and learn new things, but you should be adaptive enough to do that. The second one is fear of selling out. So on the one hand, you're quite ambitious to succeed, and on the other, you don't want to succeed. Whatever choices you make, if you achieve any kind of public success, it's a sad fact that somewhere, will be thinking and even saying nasty things about you, including accusations of selling out. What to do about it? Firstly, accept that you'll never please everybody. Backbiting is part of the pride of success. And just make sure that you're comfortable with your choices. The third one is fear of becoming someone else. Because we habitually put successful people on pedestals, the idea of becoming one of them can feel quite daunting. You start to worry that you'll turn into someone else, a person your friends and family won't recognise and won't like. This fear has some foundation in reality. After all, if you're satisfied with the person you are now, why would you want to change? But it's also founded on a false premise that change is about leaving your old self behind and replacing it with a completely new one. Change is more complex than that. You're definitely more complex than that. So what to do about it? Instead of thinking about change in terms of subtraction, losing your old self, think about it in terms of addition. You're about to discover and develop new facets of your personality, adding to who you are and what you bring to the world. So if you've got clients that have fear of success, how do you help them? Help the person to adhere to their goals. This may take a little hand-holding, but support them in their journey. Anticipate and prepare for being number one. Work with your client to surface all the potential threats and deal with them so they can be comfortable with being number one. Expand the comfort zone. Fake it till you make it. Encourage to play the game. Don't allow things to get too serious. Differentiate between identity and success. Like with fear of failure, these types need to understand that they are the same person regardless of the outcome. Next, we have the perfectionist. Oh, to be perfect. What a hindrance that would be. You see this little girl up against the wall with her ruler, making sure that her picture's perfect. So perfectionism is a personality trait characterized by a person striving for flawlessness and setting excessively high performance standards, accompanied by overly critical self-evaluations and concerns regarding others' evaluations. It's a multi-dimensional characteristic because there are many positive and negative aspects of having perfectionistic characteristics. I've actually got a client at the moment who shows this all the time, and she does some great work and is always very diligent in getting goals organised and achieved, but she works damn hard and you can see it's very exhausting for her. Perfectionism in its maladaptive form, perfectionism drives people to attempt to achieve an unattainable ideal. And their adaptive perfectionism can sometimes motivate them to reach their goals. In the end, they derive pleasure from doing so. But when perfectionists do not reach their goals, they often fall into sadness or into depression. Perfectionists strain compulsively and unceasingly towards unobtainable goals and measure their self-worth by productivity and accomplishment. They pressure themselves to achieve unrealistic goals, inevitably setting them up for disappointment. They tend to be harsh critics of themselves when they fail to meet their own standards. So these people work hard, they have really high expectations and high intensity. These things can be a hindrance though. These people equate self-image with performance. And they very rarely enjoy their success because they're never satisfied with their level of performance. And if you know people that have these tendencies, really watch out for physical and mental fatigue. So how do we work with them? How do we help them? Develop a positive association with mental and physical rest. So I'm not just saying this because I'm a yoga teacher, but relaxation methods are ideal for these types. Take time to enjoy success. Put rewards in place and make sure they reward themselves. My client that I was mentioning previously, I had to practically demand her that she put a massage in her schedule. Obviously, I didn't demand because that would be unprofessional, but we had a very strong conversation about the benefits of rewards. Engage in verbal communication about satisfying aspects of performance. So these types will automatically focus on the negative elements of performance. And it's important to get them to think about the good and satisfying elements. So to be good to balance the satisfying and the unsatisfying, because too much focus on the satisfying elements will just make them disengage. It takes them a while to believe it. Dwell on pleasure of process rather than outcome. So have a look at the small wins. Enjoy the process of achieving goals. So keep your client focused on the process. It's the journey rather than the destination. Keep them focused on why they're working towards whatever it is they're working towards. Provide a balanced and realistic time orientation to training, because they have a tendency to overpromise and underdeliver. Intensity is always high with these guys and success is mid-level because they put too much pressure on themselves and nothing's ever good enough. The underachiever, Bart Simpson. So the underachiever can be described as a natural because they've got a great talent and have enjoyed success without hard work or discipline. Problem is that there's no appreciation of hard work and feels no pride when it translates to success. So the underachiever needs to be educated about the relationship between success and effort. So short-term goals with intent, effort, and concentration. Intensity and success is low. These guys don't have much mojo for accomplishing things because to them, it just happens. So how do we work with them? Obtain a verbal commitment to change. These types need to make an effort and commit to change. Educate about the effort-success ratio. They need to understand that there are consequences to putting in effort. So I can actually relate to this personally because when I was in primary school and throughout high school, I was a real natural learner and I really blitzed my tests and always got good results. Towards the end of high school, things started to get really hard, but I hadn't trained myself to study or to put any effort into learning. So it was actually a lot harder for me to get through things. By the time I got to uni, I didn't really have any study skills and got easily distracted, and I really struggled through my undergrad. So had I understood this concept when I was younger, I would have put more effort into what I was learning. Expand time orientation to past, present, and future. Because these types breeze through life, they need to be shown conceptually that putting effort in today will mean that rewards can be reaped tomorrow. And he or she competes against oneself. Small goals to show them how to be competitive. This will ignite their mojo. So that's the underachiever. And the last one, so this is the sixth one, is learned effectiveness. So this person assumes control and never blames others or makes excuses. They understand success is about hard work, dedication, and persistence. Here, there is nothing to work through as such because it's a very healthy way to operate. The general traits you'll notice in this pattern of motivation is these people, they don't make any excuses. They accept responsibility for minor losses. They see weakness as challenge. Strong emotion of pride. Confidence based on preparation. They set performance, process, and personal goals. Goals are the ends, well-structured plans to the means. Determine success by internal factors. Acknowledge significant past, present, and future. So as you can see, there are different patterns of motivation that can both help and hinder our motivation and our ability to choose to be motivated. They impact our mojo and our ability to inspire and aspire. So the more we can recognize and understand these patterns in ourselves and our clients, the more we can work on making conscious decisions to act on making different decisions to keep our motivation flowing. So here is the visual of the motivational patterns we've just worked through. So just take a look at that for a moment. You see that the learned effectiveness, what we just spoke about, is on the top right-hand corner. So that's high levels of effort and high levels of success. You see the underachiever down here in the left bottom corner, where there's a little effort and little success. So just have a look at this model. Take a moment to think what your motivational patterns are. Where would you mark yourself on this model? Just let me know in the chat box. Perfectionistic tendencies at work but not at home. Fear of failure. I've worked hard to change the language. Perfectionistic. Okay, another perfectionist. A few perfectionists in here. Learned effectiveness. I take on board all that happens and use this to fuel and motivate me forward. Well done. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so you can have a look at this model and you can see where your clients are. And you can have a look and see if you can identify your clients on this. And I'll be sending this out to you after today. So how do we get more of it? So these patterns are really deeply ingrained in us. They've been developing since we were born and impact the decisions we make every day. But the good news is that by getting micro on the way we make decisions can really impact change and enable us to change our motivation so that it's free-flowing and unrestricted by our patterns. So how do we get more motivation? We simply understand our patterns and then we decide to have more motivation. Sounds easy? We just have to decide to be motivated. So have you ever stopped to think about the way you make a decision or being conscious that you're making a decision? Have you ever caught yourself making a decision and decided to take a different path? So this is when you're conscious of the options available to you and you whiz through them to pick one that works for you. So the process of making decisions happens very quickly and it often happens subconsciously. If we want to decide to have endless motivation, we need to train our minds to do this. We need to take the time to get really micro on our decision making. We need to become really mindful and really conscious. We need to befriend the little voice that talks us out of taking action, and we need to nurture and support that little voice and start to question why it makes the decisions it does. Then we need to replace those non-action thoughts with thoughts of action. Train your little voice to be motivated and you will be motivated. It takes a little dedication, but it's quite easy to do. So let's have a look at decision making. What is it and how do we do it? Decision making is about our ability to show judgment. It's made up of two ingredients, for want of a better word. That is common sense and judgment. So common sense, it's not actually as common as you might think. A good decision-making ability is the ability to notice, process, and assess. So it should be based on facts and the desired outcome is everything. This isn't easy as it sounds because for it to be based on facts, we need to be clear on what is an emotive response or an irrational response and only focus on that which is factual. Good judgment is the other ingredient. So the definition of good judgment is the evaluation and evidence to make a decision. So we go through a cognitive process to evaluate all the options available to us, and then we make a judgment or decision based on our biases, our choices, our discriminations, and prejudices. It's a very natural process. So developing good decision-making skills is like developing a muscle. When you start out, you have to pay a lot of attention to the weight you're lifting and when you're feeling and experiencing in your body. It may be a struggle for the first few weeks while you educate your body on the technique, but as you get stronger, it becomes easier. You still need to pay attention, but you get deeper into the understanding of what your desired outcome is, and you become skilled at lifting that weight. It's the same with decision making. So when we train ourselves to choose to make great decisions, to be motivated, we follow some simple decision-making steps. So let's go back to our client, Penny, to help us with the explanation. Okay, so let's say Penny has gone to the Hunter Valley for the weekend. Her trainer's given her permission to drink 4 glasses of wine over the weekend. And it's Saturday night and she's already consumed her 4 glasses and is contemplating more, even though her marathon is only a week away. To go through the process, Penny would need to think of the purpose. For what purpose are you making the decision? Starting with the end in mind. So the end is the marathon. Does the decision support the mission? Does it support the health vision? Does it support what you're ideally trying to achieve? If the above isn't supported, you wouldn't do it. So for Penny, clearly this is a no. The second step is to look at the desired outcome. Knowing what this is that dominates your health, what evidence are you wanting to see to know that you've succeeded? How will you know when you've achieved it? What milestones do you want to achieve along the way? And how will you know when you've achieved the desired outcome? So Penny should remind herself of the evidence of wanting to do the marathon and how hard she's been working and the great results she's been getting. She knows she only has 1 more week until she's achieved her goal. She will know the desired outcome is achieved is A, she doesn't drink the wine, and B, she crosses the line of the marathon next week. The third is evidence of success. So what evidence do you have for making your decision? Why this decision? And are there any other options which would work better? So for Penny, Penny knows that if she has 1 drink, she'll have more and then she'll feel lightheaded tomorrow morning and won't want to go for a run and train. So other options for her may be to drink sparkling water out of a wine glass for the rest of the evening. And the fourth one is the criteria for success. So what is your criteria for success? Is the decision sustainable? Is the decision replicable? So for Penny, success would be not to have another wine. So all this would happen in Penny's thought processes very quickly. So the more we can catch ourselves and get really micro, the more we can make conscious decisions that take more control of the outcomes of our behaviours. Think about your example of what makes you tick at the start of the webinar. Think about a time when you had to make a decision around this example. Now go through this decision-making process and see if you can map out your decisions for motivation. So take a moment to do that. So take the things that motivates you. Think about a time when you had to make a decision around that and then go through these 4 steps. And just notice your levels of energy when you're doing it. So just remember, it's like building a muscle. So although it will be hard work at first, once you've stopped to think about this process a few times, you start to train your mind to go through this process, and eventually it'll happen quite effortlessly. So what's next? What do you do with this information? So we spent the last hour talking about motivation, what it is, why we want it, what stops us, and how to get more of it. So what now? Practice, 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 I would say. So think about the direction and intensity of things you do and work out what really motivates you. I'll send you through the model and see if you can identify your own motivational patterns and put in the effort to recognize when you're holding yourself back or experiencing barriers to your motivation and where that fits in the motivational patterns. Engage your decision-making muscle and work through the 4 steps to reignite your mojo. And then just keep repeating it until you really understand what your patterns are and you really understand those trigger points when they come up. So once you've got to grips with your own, then start to have a look at your clients and follow through each of the steps with a coaching mindset with them. So I've given you a lot of information to think about during this session. So the concepts are quite broad and there's a lot of work to do to get really deep into understanding motivation. So if you were happy with the information provided and think that there's enough to send you on your journey to working more effectively with your own mojo and your client's mojo, then that's great. I'll send you the model and I'll also send you a 1-pager with all the elements on it tomorrow. And I wish you all the best. You're welcome to email me or call me at any time if you want to ask any questions. But if you want to delve a little deeper, I invite you to apply for our Mojo Muscle Coaching Program. So in our coaching program, we work with you one-on-one to get to the nitty-gritty of your goals. We hold you accountable to get really clear on what you want to achieve and give you some really solid strategies to help you achieve it. So you can keep working with your clients and losing them when their motivation starts to waver. Or you can use the tools and techniques I've given you today to retain your clients for longer and for yourself to make the right decisions to keep yourself motivated. If you want to delve further into a tailored plan of your motivations or your clients' motivations, then apply to be part of our successful Mojo Muscle Coaching Program. So in this program, we will have 6 sessions together to help you find and flex your mojo muscles so you can make sustainable changes in your decision-making process and inspire and aspire every day. We'll layer your motivational patterns with a diagnostic tool that identifies your signature strengths. And with a full debrief, you can learn what you can leverage when you start to waver. The tool we use is called Realize 2 and was developed by a team of psychologists. I love using the tool because it's really easy and it really makes sense. Then we work with you to give you some tailored exercises to flex your motivational muscles and retain your mindset to have endless mojo. So then it's all about maintaining. So we'll work with you with some really solid strategies to maximize your motivation in your everyday. So this is an application-based program. So to apply, please go to my online calendar and book an appointment. It only takes 2 seconds. So just put appointmentswithkylie.com.au into your browser and my diary will appear. Choose from the time options available and something that suits your schedule. You'll be giving my number to call at the time of the appointment. Then we'll have a conversation to see if we're the right fit to work together. So I do receive a high number of inquiries. And positions in my programs is strictly application-based. I choose to work with only a small number of clients because I believe in delivering a really good, solid service. So I wanted to thank you all for coming along tonight and taking the time out to listen to this training. Time is a very valuable resource and I really appreciate yours. I will stay on the line for a few minutes for any questions or queries. So if you're leaving now, thank you again, and I hope to stay connected with each of you. Thanks, guys.